There comes a moment in every life when we are called to step back and look at the love we've accepted, the love we've tolerated, and the love we truly deserve. Some relationships lift us, steady us, and remind us of our purpose. Others drain our spirit, confuse our hearts, and make us question our own worth. A normal relationship brings peace, honesty, and room for growth. A narcissistic relationship brings turmoil, doubt, and the slow erosion of your identity. Today, I want to speak to the heart in you that knows the difference deep down. You were not created to walk through life in fear, in chaos, or in emotional bondage. You were created for connection that builds you, not breaks you. And when you learn to recognize the contrast between genuine love and manipulative affection, you find the courage to step into a life where your soul can finally breathe again. There is a point in life when you must sit yourself down and get honest about what you're calling love. Because love, real love, does not demand your silence, your fear, or your exhaustion. Love stands beside you, not over you. Love lifts your shoulders when the world feels heavy. It does not become the weight you're struggling to carry. But control disguises itself well. Control will smile while it tightens its grip. It will tell you that you're too sensitive, too emotional, too difficult, just so you forget that you deserve tenderness, not tension. A healthy bond gives you room to grow, to breathe, to step into every part of who you are without apology. A narcissistic bond shrinks you down, piece by piece, until you feel grateful for the bare minimum. And somewhere along the way, you start believing that this is how relationships are supposed to feel. That confusion becomes normal, that walking on eggshells is just another version of love, that doubting yourself is simply part of the deal. But let me tell you something, the most powerful moment in your life will be the moment you recognize the difference, when you finally see how love gives without keeping score, while control takes without ever being filled. When you understand how a healthy bond allows two people to shine without dimming each other, just to stay in the room. When you realize that love wants your truth while control wants your obedience, that's when everything changes. Because once your eyes open, you can't go back to pretending that emotional chaos is passion or that manipulation is care. You start protecting your peace like it's treasure. You begin choosing people who speak to your potential instead of your insecurities. You stop settling for relationships that need you to shrink so someone else can feel big, and you start honoring the quiet voice inside that always knew something wasn't right. The difference between love and control becomes the difference between surviving and living. And the moment you choose love, the kind that strengthens your spirit and respects your boundaries, you begin to rise into the life you were meant to live, the life where your heart is not an object to be owned, but a soul to be cherished, the life where you finally understand that peace is not much to ask for and that you were never created to live under the shadow of someone else's insecurity. There comes a time after leaving a toxic relationship when silence feels louder than screaming, when calm feels unsettling, and when kindness feels suspicious. You walk into peace, but your body is still trained for war. That's what toxicity does. It conditions you to expect chaos, to brace for impact, to believe that love always comes with tension and confusion. So when peace finally arrives, it doesn't feel like comfort at first. It feels foreign. It feels like something you have to earn, something that might disappear if you relax for even a moment. You catch yourself waiting for the next argument, the next insult, the next emotional trap, even though no one is coming to hurt you anymore. That's what healing looks like in the beginning. You don't trust the quiet because the quiet was once the warning before the storm. You don't trust the softness because softness was once followed by punishment. But with time, something shifts. You start realizing that peace is not the enemy. Peace is the home you were always meant to return to. Peace is the place where your nervous system finally gets to exhale. It's where your mind is allowed to rest without decoding someone else's moods, without guessing what version of them you'll get today. It's where you learn that safety is not unpredictable, that tenderness doesn't have to be earned, that love doesn't require you to lose yourself just to keep someone else comfortable. And as you spend more time in this new reality, you begin to understand that the strangeness you feel is not a sign that peace is wrong. It's a sign that toxicity was never normal. It's a sign that your spirit had been fighting for too long, that your heart had been surviving instead of living. Healing beyond a narcissistic relationship is not about forgetting what happened. It's about remembering who you were before the damage and who you are becoming after it. It's about teaching your heart that calm is allowed, that joy is possible, that stability is safe. Slowly, you stop flinching at gentle words. You stop questioning healthy love. You stop doubting your worth. And one day, without even realizing it, peace no longer feels strange. It feels earned. It feels deserved. It feels like the life you were always meant to step into, the life where your soul finally rests, rebuilds, and rises again. There comes a moment in life when you have to look at the pain you once labeled as love and tell yourself the truth. Real love doesn't break you down to keep you close. Real love doesn't make you question your worth or punish you for having needs, emotions, or dreams. Somewhere along the line, you might have been taught that intensity is passion, that jealousy is devotion, that emotional highs and lows are proof of a deep connection, but those patterns were never love. They were manipulation dressed up as affection, control disguised as commitment. And if you lived through that, it's no surprise that you started confusing struggle with loyalty. But there comes a day when you finally ask yourself a powerful question. What if love isn't supposed to hurt like this? That's where growth begins. Growth isn't loud or dramatic. Growth starts quietly, the moment you decide you're done accepting pain as part of the package. The moment you understand that love is not supposed to make you shrink, apologize for existing, or dim your light so someone else can feel bright. Real love stands with you, not against you. Real love pushes you forward, not down. Real love wants to see you become everything you were created to be, not everything someone else demands you to be. And when you begin choosing growth over manipulation, something inside you wakes up. You start noticing the difference between someone who corrects you to control you and someone who guides you to support you. You notice the difference between someone who wants power over you and someone who wants partnership with you. And as you grow, your standards rise. You begin to understand that being loved should never cost you your self-respect, your voice, or your peace. You stop settling for relationships that drain you and start choosing connections that water your spirit. The pain you once accepted becomes the boundary you refuse to cross again. The manipulation you once tolerated becomes the lesson that strengthens your backbone. And the version of you that doubted your own needs becomes the version of you that protects them fiercely. Real love doesn't hurt, not because love is perfect, but because love and harm cannot coexist. When you finally choose growth, you choose a life where your heart is nurtured, your mind is respected, and your soul is free. There comes a time after surviving narcissistic abuse when the world finally quiets down, but you don't quite know what to do with the silence. You step into a normal relationship, and suddenly everything feels unfamiliar. The calm feels suspicious, the kindness feels undeserved, and the consistency feels like a setup. You're so used to chaos that clarity feels like a trick. That's what happens when you've lived in a space where love was unpredictable, where affection depended on obedience, and where peace only existed between storms. Your mind learned to scan for danger even when none was there. Your heart learned to brace for impact even in gentle moments. So when someone shows up with steady energy and honest intentions, your first instinct isn't trust, it's doubt. But slowly, something begins to shift. You start noticing small things you never experienced before. Arguments don't turn into battles. Differences don't become weapons. Accountability doesn't feel like punishment. And for the first time, you realize that a raised voice isn't the only way to express frustration, and silent treatment isn't the only form of withdrawal. You begin to see that a normal relationship has space for your feelings, your fears, your flaws, and your growth. It doesn't twist your words or use your vulnerabilities against you. It doesn't punish you for being human. It doesn't make you feel like love is something you have to earn every day while walking on emotional landmines. Clarity arrives when you understand that stability isn't boring. It's safe. Kindness isn't manipulation. It's maturity. And respect isn't optional. It's the foundation. You find yourself breathing easier, speaking more freely, letting your shoulders drop from the tension you didn't even realize you were carrying. You start trusting your instincts again. You start believing that you deserve this kind of connection, one where your heart is not a battlefield but a home. And the more time you spend in this new space, the more you realize how far you've come. You recognize that what once felt foreign is actually what you always needed. You understand that normal love isn't perfect, but it's honest, steady, and grounded in mutual care. And bit by bit, the chaos you survived transforms into the clarity that guides your future. The clarity that reminds you that real connection doesn't confuse your spirit, it calms it. There comes a moment when you look at the pieces of yourself left after a narcissistic relationship and realize that something has to change. You can't keep living in the shadow of someone else's insecurities. You can't keep abandoning yourself just to be chosen by someone who was never capable of choosing you in a healthy way. Breaking the cycle begins the moment you decide that your worth is not up for negotiation anymore. Because a narcissistic relationship doesn't just wound your heart, it rewrites the way you see yourself. It makes you doubt your voice, your strength, your value. It convinces you that you're too much, too needy, too emotional, or too difficult, all while demanding that you give more than you have. And slowly, you forget who you were before the damage. You forget the fire in you, the confidence you carried, the identity you once protected. But your worth was never erased, it was covered, and reclaiming it is your journey back to yourself. You start by telling the truth about what you survived, not to stay stuck in the past, but to understand the patterns that trapped you. You begin to recognize how manipulation shaped your reactions, how gaslighting made you question reality, how emotional neglect made you shrink your needs, and then you take the brave step of rebuilding what was broken. You learn to trust your own voice again. You learn to listen to your instincts instead of silencing them. You learn that your emotions are not weaknesses, but signals guiding you toward a healthier life. Reclaiming yourself, worth means setting boundaries without apologizing. It means saying no without guilt. It means walking away from anything that reminds you of the same pain you worked so hard to escape. And as you grow, you discover something powerful. You were never hard to love. You were just giving your love to someone incapable of receiving it. You were never too sensitive. You were reacting to emotional harm. You were never unworthy. You were unappreciated. Bit by bit, the fog lifts, the doubt fades, the shame dissolves. You start seeing yourself not through the eyes of the one who broke you, but through the truth of who you are becoming. Stronger, wiser, softer in the right places, and unbreakable in others. Breaking the cycle means choosing yourself in ways you never have before. It means stepping into a future where your heart isn't a target but a treasure, where your worth isn't questioned but honored, where you finally rise into the life you deserved all along. In the end, reclaiming your life after a narcissistic relationship isn't just about healing from what happened to you. It's about rising into who you were always meant to be. It's about stepping out of survival mode and learning to live again with confidence, with clarity, and with purpose. You begin to realize that the pain didn't break you, it woke you up. It pushed you toward a version of yourself that knows how to love without losing balance, how to give without abandoning boundaries, and how to stand without shaking. And as you grow, you begin to attract people who reflect the strength you've earned, not the wounds you've endured. The road forward won't always be easy, but it will be worth it. Because every step you take away from toxicity is a step toward peace, wholeness, and the life your heart has been waiting for.